Hi everyone, welcome back to our live event with Bosstrack. I'm Kayla Hamric, and here today I have with me Stephanie Thoma. How are you doing today, Stephanie?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Today we'll dive into a little bit about Bosstrack and how we are really about helping our community and helping women empowerment within the workplace and moving from one step to another. Today we'll be able to dive in a little bit on how wellness impacts leadership, especially on our new leaders stepping into the workplace and those higher rank positions. So, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your story and what your company does?
Sure. Yeah. So I am Stephanie Thoma. I'm the author of a human connection book called Confident Introvert, based on hosting 1,000 events. And I also am the host of a podcast called Holistic Ambition, redefining what it means to be ambitious with more well being, meaning, and fun. And yeah, I also work in the personal and professional growth space, mentorship. I still host a lot of community events, currently based in Austin. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and talk about the intersection of wellness, leadership, work.
That's awesome. So excited. So, basically, when we reach out to our community members and give them advice on how to input wellness into our day to day lives, because right now we all know post COVID, we're trying to get back on track. It's a little difficult to put ourselves first right now. So, would you give any advice in the beginning of this event to our reader or to our listeners?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So if you are watching this, listening to this, and thinking, I'd love to have some wellness. However, I'm too busy. There's no time to do well. I just have to be this producer, go, 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 go. And, there's a famous quote. I'm not going to try to remember it verbatim, but it's something along the lines of those that don't have time to meditate should meditate for 2 hours instead of 10 minutes. So if you're actually on autopilot to the point where there will always be more to do. uh, there rarely is a point in time. I mean, certainly maybe there are those moments where you're like, wow, I finished it all, now I can actually, I deserve to relax. And I
Mm-hmm.
know I found myself in that space more than once where,
I
okay, got to earn. I mean, you can make everything a contest. Like, oh, I have to earn a shower, I have to earn a nap, just gamify your whole productive life. When, I think there's an opportunity to integrate intent. It's almost like, let's say, if you were to brush your teeth every morning, which hopefully you already do, that's not even a conversation. um, Wellness just becomes a part of your daily life, and it's as second nature as the wellness habit of brushing your teeth, drinking water on a daily basis. And not to trigger anyone, if you're not already drinking water, maybe these are just friendly reminders to go ahead and do that, like raising a glass. But one of the strategies that I really love that I use, that I encourage my clients to use, is called the daily 3-2-1. So it's 1 hour, and it's essentially, you can do it first thing in the morning to set your day off to a great start. You can do it in the middle of your day to break things up. I like to recommend doing it an hour before bed, in that tech-free time, ideally, where it's called the daily 3-2-1, because you start with 30 minutes of reading. Fun fact, the average person reads about 19 minutes a day. So this kind of gets you ahead of the curve there by at least an extra 50%, which helps you, also has a positive correlation with a bunch of factors. Not really going to go into the nitty gritty there. Then the second will be 20 minutes of journaling, or if you're not a fan of that word, if it feels intimidating, you can just, anything that's in your mind, a story that you're replaying, or even if you feel unaware of your thoughts because they're going so quickly, now's the time, stream of consciousness writing. And oftentimes this is where we can get either some great ideas, great clarity, or just kind of have a place to put thoughts that we're like, okay, there they are. Now I get to be calm. And last but not least, the one is 10 minutes of meditation, which, if you are feeling frazzled, and again, in that state of mind where I don't have time to relax, then at the very least, if you could only do one of these three things, go ahead and do yourself a favor and meditate in silence. I prefer a mindfulness meditation style where you're sitting down, maybe you light a candle, you're looking at the flame, just kind of allowing yourself to zone out for 10 minutes. Or you could even just go on a walk where you're really focused on your breath. And ideally, maybe there's some trees around. You just kind of get to look at those, go ahead, bonus point, touch the tree, that
I
sort of thing.
absolutely love this method. I need to incorporate it in my day to day. Like, even if it doesn't absolutely connect into someone's schedule, they could possibly split it up just to make sure to get it all in. Or right before bed, like you said, a lot of people maybe look at their phones, but that's a perfect hour right before you go to sleep to completely connect to yourself. And I love that 20 minutes of maybe creative writing or putting out ideas, because right now journaling is probably a big fad in the industry. And yes, it is great to connect with yourself, but it's also amazing to get your creativity out on paper, to be able to expand outside of your little box that you keep yourself in sometimes.
Yeah. And, if anyone watching this is wanting to establish more thought leadership with writing, so I know it was a life goal of mine to become an author. And actually, by the way, that Daily 321 is from Confident Introvert, my first book.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and, I set a goal for myself to write every single day without fail. So this could be a part of that process, right? It could be creative, because I know that some people can kind of tense up when they're like, ooh, confronting emotions. Don't want to do that right now. Well, it's like, okay, ease into it. Doesn't need to be focused on personal growth. It can just be for fun. You can write a story, write a reflection of something that happens in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then over time, it can be interesting to see the themes that emerge, or just sort of how you feel about your writing process, how much easier it becomes.
That's amazing. And speaking about your book, how did you get started and really want to dive in to become an author? Was it a dream since you were little, like you said? Or,
Well, so my dream when I was little was to be a writer for a magazine.
okay,
So I wasn't even thinking as
love
big as
that.
author. Yeah, I was like, wow, I love 17 magazine. And I would just like, I had this habit of transcribing articles, like makeup tutorials, like just random
Mhm.
things in my own writing style. I was like, huh, okay. So they're relaying the information this way. I would say it this way. So I would just like rewrite articles. That was like an afternoon, as a kid. And yeah, then there came a point where I actually became a staff writer at an online magazine.
Okay.
And there was that moment of, oh shoot, this was the goal. And then, that company, I was there for about a year, and then it folded. A lot was switching up in recent years, but it was one of those things where I was like, okay, well, is there a new writing goal that I can like kind of attain? Because I mean that was fun, but now I mean I could just go and get another role that's similar. But yeah, it was actually, I want to say after that company folded, it would be maybe a couple of years, maybe 3 years or so, until I got the idea to more or less repurpose existing content and make it more robust. At that point in time, this is 2019. I was, let's see, I was touring a workshop called Networking for Introverts. And so all that content existed. I had recordings of Q&A, and it was, when I transcribed the workshop, I think it was about 15 Google document pages. And then when the book was finished, it was around 60. So it was about 25%. I mean, not completed. So I
Yeah.
definitely built it out more. But yeah, I think a big thing that helped me get out of my own way with writing a book was not focusing so much on this being my defining life's work, where okay, there it goes forever and always, like this is the label that I am owning. And I mean, to be fair, some people that become familiar with my work through that book, that is how they could think of my professional work forever. You do kind of run that risk, but it's like if you don't stand for anything, um if you don't stand for something, then you'll fall for anything. Just kidding. But it's one of those things where where, where it's like, why not just try on a hat? And even now, I love quoting Glennon Doyle
Okay.
around. She said that when her book came out, even Untamed, every book that she writes, once it comes out and she's promoting it, she's like, I feel kind of like a fraud because that was a past version of self. And I'm
Yeah.
talking about it like it's present when, it's like the artistic process, right? When you write a song about heartbreak, if you hypothetically do that, okay, I do that,
Yeah.
then it's like, hopefully it's a catharsis. You're creating the thing. And then it's like, oh, great. It's out there. It's in the world. Well, obviously Taylor Swift does that.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can just
We
give her
all do it
here,
now.
creatives creating things.
Mhm.
And yeah, just kind of getting used to the flow of being a creator and deciding that, hey, I'm just going to stand for this thing. And then even if it's not the perfect fit of how I end up being, in a few years, then you get to create something else. And then you get to outgrow that as well. So it's this perpetual process, where we get to have these it is a legacy of sorts,
Mhm.
where people that you'll never meet are going to have the opportunity to learn things that you've learned through maybe trial and error, through experience, through studies, through a combination. And yeah, I'm just gonna leave that there.
This process helps so many people, and maybe it might be in the past for you, but it could be in the present for someone else who's reading the book, and they are so proud that other people are also going through similar situations, which can help them move to the next step as well, which I really love about mentioning that it might be in the past for you and you keep moving forward and it pushes you to where you are today, and it might not be relevant, but it could be relevant in other people's lives, which is why maybe you write the book to help other people grow and learn from experience that you've been through as well.
Right. And just to even elaborate upon that, so Holistic Ambition, the podcast, spoiler alert, it's probably going to be a book, because that's kind of the flow of how I've been operating, at least in recent years. Um, and I'm finding myself thinking, man, that, Daily 321 would be perfect for this chapter, but it was already in that book. And I
Yeah.
guess, whatever, I have creative agency. I could just put it in the book again, but I kind of like the idea of having new content, in each book and maybe slightly referencing something, but it's like, okay, if you want the depth of that concept, like you're going to need to go to the original book. And then it's kind of like a building upon like thought leadership and different like experiences, because I know I like to infuse some personal experiences into my work or some anonymized client examples, to really bring home certain points. And also, to your point, it can be non-linear, where, for example, I wrote this book about human connection, and then guess what happened? A global pandemic. So I actually was like, I could benefit from my own book right now. Past version of self was like really like plugged in to like being
Yeah.
super social. And I'm like, oh, like it was kind of this, I don't know, funny moment where I think a mentor literally sent me a quote. And I was like, hold on. She said, you said that in your book. And I was like, oh, shoot.
When you get sent
Good
books,
advice.
that's amazing. Oh my gosh.
So it's just friendly reminder, that sometimes other people mentor us, sometimes past and present versions can, still be of help.
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe that people will take claim over, oh, I wrote this one book and this is my title and that's what I am. But it's also okay to move away from that and try out new things. Like maybe you really wanted to write in the magazines and that ended up being a great starting point, but you just felt that there was something more and you didn't really know until the company folded. So then you started writing your own book and that became to be amazing, and now you're doing your podcast that may turn into another book, but it's amazing just to see the process and accept the fact that it's okay to keep moving forward in a leadership role as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So switching topics just a little bit, you have been mentioning about whether paying your dues was necessary through the process. Would you like to expand a little bit about that?
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to, there's a lot of talk right now that anti hustle culture And I mean, that's what holistic ambition stands for, right? I'm not saying like, oh, you just have to nose to the grindstone, ignore how you feel. Like, just, it's more like take a nap if you want to. But then again, I'm not in the camp of just nap all day. And if you don't
Hmm.
feel like working, that's fine. Don't do anything. And then, maybe you'll have your book. Maybe you'll, serve your client when you're feeling up for it. It's like, no, there's kind of, I believe, and this is in my experience, and I've seen in other people's experiences as well, that there is a period of time where there is hustle, but it's not hustle. It doesn't need to be this exhaustion that actually where someone burns out and then they regret it. There's another way. And what this is having, let's say, a really full schedule where maybe there is more doing than you typically would be able to sustain for a super long period, because it's actually in alignment with your life purpose and your highest expression of yourself and your gifts. So let's say that you're plugged in to something that really lights you up. So for me, hosting community gatherings, I did such a high volume of them, and there was really no good reason why my energy was able to be sustained. I mean, aside from I was managing my energy, I was taking time for solitude. But if you kind of look at, well, what? Like, that's kind of insane, actually, like hosting 1,000 events over the course of like about 5 years. But I would say for the most part, I was really like kind of lit up by the process and like everything that I was learning, the people that I got to meet and connect with. And then actually it came to a natural decrescendo when I started the book writing process in the winter of 2019. And actually, yeah, I was writing it, kind of taking a slight pause, still hosting some things here and there, but feeling kind of like my energy was shifting. But then in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go into a slight hibernation to write the book, and then book tour, and all the events are going to happen again 2020. And then the world had other plans. So it was just like a lot more of
Yeah.
that, just kind of being able to be solitary. And it was kind of like, and I wonder if your listeners can like relate to this beautiful arc where it's like a coming back to self. Because even thinking back to like when I was a kid, like rewriting those magazine articles for fun, and like listening to music, being like in my bedroom, like the most fun thing, listening to music, honestly, probably transcribing those lyrics as well.
Yeah.
And, just like
In there.
the joy in like being idle, like just receiving other people's art,
Hmm.
and also, yeah, just like being inspired by it without any agenda. And not to say that people didn't have stuff going on during that time, but I know without the events that took up so much of my time, I did have more time for downtime, and I was able to sort of reunite with that self, that inspired this whole life chapter, no pun intended, of Confident Introvert, where it's like I had gotten to a place where I could really tap into the introvert experience, being more introverted, and be like, hey, here's how you connect with people. Here's how you rise into leadership, like based on my experiences. Because there came a point where, from an external view, people were like, oh, like you're so lit up by this. You're obviously not introverted. And it's like, let's talk about what that means. You get your energy from solitude, but also things that you really love.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was kind of, yeah, a cool experience of coming back to self, with being able to kind of reassess, what's true, what is like what direction you want to go in life. Because, you know, being social and like networking and doing all of those things um with other people, that can be a way to brainstorm or ideate. In a market research context, people do that all the time, because people's ideas can feed off of each other. But there's something to be said about the creative process that is more rooted in a connection with something greater that's like beyond this plane, if we want to get
Yeah.
woo, which we can. But it's like tapping into like something greater, like a source sort of energy,
Hmm.
where creativity gets to kind of flow through you. And I find that that doesn't happen in community, that happens in solitude, but we need both.
Exactly. That's an awesome point that we definitely do need both experiences to not only like help expand ourselves whenever we're put into those leadership roles or even just a day-to-day experiences. We definitely need both experiences like that. And so, paying your dues, definitely highly recommend that we go through that process and not just go on, I want to take a nap all day. I want to do this, and my book's just going to come. It, I don't think it's that easy. You don't think it's that easy. And I'm sure the whole world does. And obviously, like you said, just going full force is not the maybe ideal situation for everybody. Obviously, you were going full force, and the whole world said, wait, you need to take a deep breath and look into yourself when COVID happened. And you were able to get that solitude you needed to then get creative and find yourself and take the next step forward.
Yeah, and another point about this sort of, paying your dues concept, it can also look like learning. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a trap to be aware of is to not learn to the point where you're not actually doing anything or creating anything, but not just learning by reading, although I love that, learning by doing. So, for example, apply this however you want, but an example would be, let's say with events, it's not going to be enough for me to read a book on, I do like books, for example, like The Art of Gathering or Never Eat Lunch Alone, like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Like they're all good books, but it's like, okay, great, read the books and maybe volunteer behind the scenes at an event and learn from people who are doing what you want to do. And don't, people who believe that, oh, I don't have to pay my dues, that's true to an extent if you actually have a natural aptitude for something. But the thing is, if you know that you have an aptitude for something and other people haven't witnessed it or seen it, if you try to tell without showing, like, oh, I'm so good at this, trust me, most of the time people are gonna be like, what? Like, who are you? Like, we don't have that rapport developed. So, paying your dues could be reframed as building up your credibility through just really being a steward of the cause, being someone who is yeah, like offering people who are further along than you assistance, you know,
Yeah.
and being really humbled by some of the activities, like, even at like, for example, there may be some events, again, this example, where you have a full team of people setting up for you, you get to just kind of delegate and then be in your zone of genius, whatever aspect of the production that is for you. Other times it's like, maybe you need to set up the chairs and you need to, like, pick up the trash at the end. And it's sometimes it's not totally linear either. I know that some people, especially in the personal growth industry, in the past couple of years, there's been a really popular topic of, like, this is my new normal, and almost holding on to it so tightly that, oh no, now those things are below me because this is my new normal. Like, I can't, you know I can't, like, be open to receiving less than that. But sometimes it's about staying true to, like, what your new standard is, while taking a step back and seeing the big picture of, I went to Marie Forleo's book launch. I think this was 2019. Everything is Figure Outable. And I asked her about public speaking. At that point in time, I was doing a mix of paid and free public speaking. I was like, how do I just only do paid? And she basically said, she shared an example. She's like, well, I'm just going to let you know, when Oprah invited me to talk, I didn't ask her how much she was going to pay me.
Yeah.
So, it's like, there are some opportunities where if you're looking at it too black and white, you can miss out. So it's really important to be nuanced.
I love that. And that is definitely something that will help our community as well. And even every individual, like in every aspect of their life, something like that is useful. So, do you have any final points to give our listeners today before we go ahead and close out?
A final point, I would say, if you have a goal, if you don't have a goal, step one, get a goal, have it be a big goal. And and decide that every day for 1 year, you're going to take a baby step towards the goal and actually follow through. Like, literally, this is kind of going back to the discipline thing where, like, literally don't go to sleep until you take that baby step and make it so manageable. Maybe it's something that you do 10 minutes a day, every single day for a year. And you might even be surprised that you accomplish the goal before the year is over.
Mm-hmm. I'm definitely going to be taking that advice. I'll be doing it. I'll let you guys know how it goes. And
Yeah.
how can everybody get in touch with you as well?
Yeah. Okay. So the best way is going to be stephaniethoma.com. That's Thoma. And yeah, you can go to stephaniethoma.com/free gifts. And I have a few different freebies there that you can choose from: a free chapter of Confident Introvert, leadership trainings, networking meditations. And then I also do one-on-one work as well in a variety of capacities. I focus on entrepreneur coaching, building out community, some leadership and life stuff. So if that is appealing to you, then you would go to stephaniethoma.com/coaching.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for popping back in and listening to Bosstrack today on our wellness event. And we'll definitely be back in touch with you all. Alrighty, have a good one. Bye.